It's time to kick off the summer, and it's time to do it the NASCAR way.
He wants to go celebrate with the fan.
America's best drivers are back in Charlotte for the Coke 600.
I grew up watching this race and then very fortunate to win it.
It's not the 4th of July just yet, but you can bet there will be fireworks.
That's a retaliation.
American life in the summertime. American life in the summertime. American life in the summertime. It's for me.
Strap in, we're going 600 miles.
Green flag, the Coca-Cola 600's underway.
Around the Track starts now.
The Carolinas are home to plenty of NASCAR races a year, but none of them hold the weight that this track has. This is Charlotte Motor Speedway, home of the Coca-Cola 600, the second major in NASCAR majors. Of course, it is a crown jewel race, and it is 5 o'clock not only somewhere, but it's 5 o'clock here in the Queen City. Welcome into a special edition of Around the Track on Queen City News, Carolina Sports Live's Carla Metz and Gabe McDonald.
Yeah, NASCAR taking over the Queen City this weekend, so we decided to start the party a little early to get everybody ready for the Coca-Cola 600, and we got to do it with some very big names. The man attempting racing's double this weekend, Kyle Larson, is going to join the show, plus Bubba Wallace, a 2311 Racing, looking to get his first win in the crown jewel, and you already know our good friend Larry McReynolds, America's crew chief, is here to break down the Cup and the Xfinity Series races that are coming up this weekend. And the roster gets even bigger as we get more into the show. We got our very own Mike Lissette on pit road with all the tips and tricks there. Plus, one of the future stars in the sport, Sam Mayer of the Xfinity Series, is going to help us navigate this track and this treacherous race coming up this weekend.
And I hate to say this, but there is some weather coming in this weekend. So Chief Meteorologist Tara Lane is either going to give us the good news or the bad news about Sunday in the Coca-Cola 600. But for right now, we're not going to talk about weather because we don't want to jinx this. We're going to talk a little bit more about this race, the crown jewel race, the second major for NASCAR of the season. And yeah, a lot to look forward to with this one. It's more than racing this weekend, though. The event itself embodies exactly what NASCAR is all about. Every car will honor a military member who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. The drivers behind those cars know that they're not only racing for their teams, but they're racing for those men and those women. As for the 600 miles, though, it's NASCAR's longest race of the year. We'll start in the sun, transition to dusk, and end this endurance test under the stadium lights. That means race conditions, strategies, and opportunities are changing by the second. You want to be known as one of the best to ever do it, then you need a Coca-Cola 600 title in Charlotte to your name.
600 miles is no joke, and it is very difficult to stay focused and make sure that your body's in good condition to be able to compete at the end of that race.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love the challenge of that race. It's been a really good race to us typically through the years, and I like that it changes so much from day to night that we have to keep on top of that.
We're racing on an awesome mile and a half in everyone's backyard. It's a big race for us, one that the team's definitely put a lot of emphasis on.
It's, one of those races that you want to end your career and say you've won, right? And, thankful to have another opportunity at it and look forward to going out there and trying to make the most of it.
Let's go ahead and do some track trends for Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is the 127th running of a Cup race at the Oval here at CMS. Now, we've had 8 different drivers win the last 8 Coca-Cola 600s. If you win the pole, you're already set for success. 2 of the last few winners have actually won from P1, something we really haven't seen a lot of this season in the Cup Series. Now, this is the only race of the season that has not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 stages. You can forget stages 1 and 2, though. If you win stage 3, your goal is to take the checkered flag. Stage 3 winners won the race in 5 of the last 8 Coke 600s. And there are plenty of drivers in the lineup looking to use Charlotte as a slump buster as well this weekend. 7 drivers ended a 30-plus race winless streak here at the Coke 600. Most recently, Ryan Blaney back in 2023 in his championship season. Well, now it's time to take a deeper dive into the weekend with somebody who doesn't really need an introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway.
Yeah, that's right. It's a man that has a win on this track here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It's Larry McReynolds. And Larry, man, we're really getting into the summer stretch right now, but it's been a pretty fun season for the Cup Series to keep up with so far.
Yeah, first and foremost, it's hard to believe we're 12 races in. We're 1 race away from halfway through the regular season before the playoffs. We're already a third of the way through the entire season. Yeah, the big three, Joe Gibbs Racing, Hendrick Motorsports Team, Penske, they look like they've kind of separated themselves from the rest of the field. We got some interesting racetracks coming up through the summer stretch, and I think we'll start to see some other players rear their head.
But before we get there, we've got, of course, NASCAR's endurance test, 600 miles on deck with the Coca-Cola 600. These drivers are going to need some extra hydration, a snack, maybe a nap before they get into their race cars. But this is a true test, almost maybe more mentally than physically for drivers.
Well, yeah, you're in that race car for about probably 4.5 hours, but I'm going to have to let them worry about getting themselves prepared. I've got to get myself prepared mentally to call this race. And think about the pit crew. There's probably going to be 9, 10, maybe up to a dozen four-tire pit stops, and we know what a difference pit road has made this year. And the crew chiefs, you've got to stay ahead of the racetrack. For whatever reason, it's always been the case. This mile-and-a-half racetrack is the most temperature-sensitive track we go to, and it's going to go through such a transition throughout this 600-mile race. We're going to start in broad daylight. We're going to get to a point where 1 and 2 is in shade, 3 and 4 is in sunlight, and then we're going to go into the nighttime. The balance of the car is going to change. The speeds are going to get quicker. Even if your car is up front, leading, maybe dominating, you still have to make changes to stay up the track, or you will lose ground and you'll be at the back.
You mentioned the crew chiefs. It's really no secret that the drivers love coming here as a mile-and-a-half, but the crew chiefs maybe have a love-hate relationship with the track. What are you hearing, from the garage as far as the fuel window and the strategy, and how to navigate that, because you're adding an extra 100 miles than we typically go any other race?
Yeah, the fuel window is about 65 laps, and the only way that really comes into play, Gabe, is maybe if you get a caution with 65 to go any of the stages or maybe in the race. As we see at most intermediate racetracks, they're probably going to split these stages in half as far as tires. They're 100 laps apiece. They're probably going to come about lap 50, maybe a little earlier than that to get advantage of those 4 fresh tires. But the biggest thing is just making adjustments to that race car probably every time you come to pit road.
And if we're talking about storylines going into the week, we can't ignore Kyle Larson, who's reattempting the double. You remember last year he tried to do it there. A weather storm impacted the Indy 500. By the time he got here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, they called the race. Christopher Bell was your winner, so he did get a chance to even get out on track. But why this year? Why is he the driver that can maybe complete this?
It doesn't matter what he races in or where he races, he figures out how to find speed. That's what he's going to have to do in that Indy car, because unlike last year, I've not seen the speed. He's going to start about 19th after everything was rearranged with the field up there. But, maybe that team, they've put downforce in that race car. It will race well. It didn't have that good qualifying speed, but he just figures out how to make something happen. It doesn't matter if it's got fenders, open wheel, dirt, asphalt, or concrete. He figures it out.
I call him Young Money for a reason. We've talked a lot about the Cup Series getting ready for the longest race of the year, but the Xfinity Series making its return after 2 weeks off. You can see that, of course, on the CW this weekend. Now, so far, Larry, 6 full-time drivers have won races and gotten themselves into the playoffs. What are some of the other big storylines you're looking at as they get back racing?
Well, they just came off 12 consecutive weeks of racing, finally got the 2 off weeks, but Allgaier and Austin Hill, they seem like they've kind of separated themselves. Junior Motorsports as a whole, they've had speed ever since the season started, but Austin Hill, Richard Childress Racing, 3 wins. You look at Justin Allgaier, 2 wins. But we've got a lot more different types of racetrack we're going to with that series as well. So a lot like the Cup Series, I think there's maybe some drivers laying in the weeds. They're going to come to life as the summer heats up.
And also Connor Zilic going to be back in the 88 for JRM, coming off a back injury that he sustained at Talladega. Had to miss the race at Texas, had the 2 weeks off, but it's good to see him back in.
It really is doing double duty here this weekend. So he's got, 900 miles of racing coming off that back injury.
Yeah, well, Larry, we appreciate you joining us. Of course, always great insight from you, and we'll check in with you later this season.
But when it comes to on-track action, it's non-stop here at Charlotte Motor Speedway starting tomorrow. The ARCA Series will practice at 1, qualify at 2:30, then race at 6. The Truck Series will practice at 3:35, qualify at 4:40, then have its race at 8:30. Then on Saturday, the big wheels start to come out here at CMS. Cup and Xfinity Series take over at the track. 11 a.m. we'll see the Xfinity cars practice and qualify. The Cup cars will then do the same at 1:35. Then Xfinity's main event will go down at 4:30, and that leaves Sunday, the longest race on the Cup Series schedule, the Coke 600. Only one thing to do then is race, and that gets started at 6 p.m. And part of winning the race is knowing what to do in the place where our very own Michael Sett is at right now.
That's right. We find him in the pits. There's no cars there, no action, but he does have a special guest with him right now. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Carly, braving the weather conditions with the Xfinity driver of the 41, Sam Mayer. Want to get into the nitty-gritty of why we're here. Pit row, pit stall selection. Can races be won and lost based on pit stall?
It absolutely can. We've seen it quite a bit this year on the Cup Series side, but it's also important for the Xfinity Series side. Every time you come down pit road, you're usually getting 4 fresh Goodyear tires and Sunoco fuel. Well, that happens in 14 seconds, so the more optimized you can make that, the better. And sometimes if you're ever blocked in by someone who's maybe a little slower than you and has to come around you, well, you have to get around them leaving, so they could block you in and you have a slow pit stop, you could lose a race because of that.
I know it's different based with Cup and Xfinity, but for Cup Series, what's the process like? How much negotiation goes into it? I know the fastest driver gets first selection, but then after that, what happens?
A lot of it just depends on where you qualify. So on the Cup Series side, they qualify on Saturday and then they pick later that day. So if you qualified first here at Charlotte Motor Speedway this weekend, well, you get the first selection. So most of the time, and honestly all the time, you're going to pick the first pit stall because that just overall has an easier time getting in and out. The rest of it, there's little openings every now and then down pit road. There's probably about 4 or 5.
So if you're not first, where do you want to be?
In one of those boxes before or after. There's about 4 openings, and that means there's 4 boxes before and 4 boxes after. So there's 8 spots, including the first and last one, that has a better chance of not getting blocked in, and you can have a better pit stop because of that. But the rest of you guys, well, good luck. It's going to be a tough day on pit road for sure.
See, now we're ready to win here. Sam, thank you so much for your time. Gabe and Carla, let's go back to you.
Appreciate it, guys. And listen, if you're new to the sport of NASCAR and you just heard from Larry Mack and you just heard from Sam Mayer, then you understand it is more than just turning left in NASCAR. There's a lot of strategy involved.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got to be able to kind of split the stages. That's something that Larry Mack talked about, especially with an extra stage, and then even the pit selection too, because you got to think about it. You got to be able to get those stops in. I mean, 9.5 seconds is really where you want to get at, and obviously, you know, being in that first spot gives you a leg up, especially being able to get on and off pit road rather quickly too.
Yeah, absolutely.